Hola, ¿cómo están? Logré terminar de editar la entrevista de Adrian Belew y como les contaba que iba a ser una serie de episodios, logré dejarlo en dos. Y está, bueno, está completa, está buena. Espero poder entregar pronto este capítulo, no sé si entre hoy día y mañana. Y de esa forma poder terminar con esta primera entrevista. Tengo muchas más que quiero subir. Y espero que les guste, pues, así que sigan disfrutando de la entrevista de Adrian Belew.
Okay. Robert le muestra esta progresión y se le ocurre la idea de que las dos guitarras jueguen en 7 y ahí nace esta canción.
So we were both playing this line together. And we thought, wouldn't it be clever if one of us just dropped one note out?
No sería, bueno, entonces Robert le dice, ¿no sería interesante que uno cambiara una de las notas?
So the other person would play, instead of a 7 and a 7, they would play a 7 and a 6. So you would have the second person playing this. Instead of... And what would happen would be the guitars would go around and round, they would circulate, and finally they would meet up again, and we would both be playing the same line. So once we developed that idea as a way of generating some way to write songs,
entonces él cuenta sobre la idea de 7 y que Robert le pide que una de las dos guitarras cambie. Al final de un ciclo más o menos largo de varios compases se vuelven a encontrar. Okay.
Finished?
Yeah.
So you turned that into like a method.
we turned that into a method, yes, of how two guitar players could come up with something to write music and songs from.
Lo convirtieron en un método para trabajar los dos guitarristas.
And it was a very difficult process as a songwriter for me because it's just staying in that one place. It's hard to develop much of a melody beyond da 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 da.
Es difícil hacer una melodía sobre eso.
So then I began to take that and make chord changes with it. So I added this. Now you had chord changes that would allow a melody to go somewhere. And we liked that, so Robert said, okay, see what else you can do with it. So I said, Frank, oh Frank, 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 oh Frank, death by drowning in your analysis. That's the chord change that really makes it work right there. And then I thought, well, okay, now what am I going to do with that? Well, maybe I should just move it up.
Entonces con los acordes que iban cambiando, él podía generar la melodía.
And that's how we began the process of writing songs like that. Over the next couple of years together, we did a lot of that kind of guitar playing and developing those things into either pieces of music or songs.
Durante años, después de hacer ese trabajo, se convirtió en una metodología para hacer varias canciones con esa superposición de figuras que después se van calzando.
Have you heard Lady Tristana's Turkish Mambo? It sounds a lot like that. You should check it out.
No, I haven't heard that, but I'm notoriously one of those people who keeps my head in my own work, and I don't get to listen to a lot of other things. I do that kind of on purpose so that I can keep my own musical thoughts kind of pure. So that's writing something with another person or in a band, a collaboration.
Okay, eso es como un trabajo de banda, de colaboración para la composición.
And that's very different to me than when I'm writing something of my own, where, you know, it's just going to be my I'm going to play it all. I'm going to do it everything myself. So that's something I always try to keep separate. One thing is for a group of people to play, and another thing is more personal to me. So when I write songs like I know right off the bat, as soon as I'm writing out, well, this is a personal song. It's for me to do. It's not for the band. It's not right for the band. You have to be careful about those things because, you know, I have a good feeling for when it's something that I should do myself.
Él está siempre preocupado de que si la composición que hace es para una banda o es para él mismo. Y siempre trata de mantener la distancia entre un trabajo con una canción personal, que es lo que nos acaba de mostrar, versus un trabajo colaborativo. Great, yeah. We really love those songs.
Oh, good. I've got many more, but I'm writing so much now with a new tuning that I developed not too long ago for Flux. And you have to change two of the strings, but ever since I developed this one tuning, I've written like 30 new songs with it. So it's really wonderful when you can find something like that, an alternate tuning that somehow inspires you.
Él nos cuenta que acaba de cambiar la afinación de la guitarra y lo ha inspirado a hacer 30 más canciones y la sube al Flux. Tienen que bajar la aplicación. Which is the tuning for the guitar?
The tuning is to take the low E string and lower it one step. So instead of an E, it becomes a D. Now at that point on the guitar, the low strings make up this particular triad. Very common, so you can, but you can't play bar chords anymore. And then the second thing is to do the same thing on the top end of the guitar. I lowered the G string from being a G to being an E. Now on the top end of the guitar you have the same triad. But it's one step higher. So listen, I'll show you what I mean. When you do this on an electric guitar, it takes a moment to tune it. Sorry. Okay, now that I have that, when I go to play a normal thing that I might normally play, like say a bar chord, you get very weird chords. So then what you have to do is you have to start, well, finding new chord shapes. So here's one that I liked. Here's another one I liked. Here's another one I liked. Or. So the first song that I wrote with this new set of this new tuning was, you know, the film company called Pixar, yes?
¿Conocen la compañía Pixar?
Pixar, yeah. I wanted to see if I could write a song that would be appropriate for a Pixar film.
Que eso sabe si podía escribir una canción apropiada para Pixar.
And it's not an easy thing to do because their songs that they put in their films are very, very specifically certain amount of things.
Y es difícil porque eligen canciones con cosas
So-
bien específicas.
So to me, it was a challenge to try to figure out how can I write a song that I could imagine being in a Pixar film. It was just a challenge I made for myself.
Entonces él quería desafiarse a sí mismo y ver si era posible hacer una canción de las que él hace y que para Pixar.
So I wrote this song called Rocket Ship. I'll just play one little part of it for you. And I recorded it, and of course sent it to them. Well, I wish I was on a rocket ship sailing far beyond the moon. And when gravity lets go of me, I'll fly. I hope we land on a planet where the girls are blue, with visual charms and multiple arms to keep me occupied. We glide along the Milky Way as if we were on roller skates. Supersonic fields we are, and we stop to wish on a star. That's what I wrote for it. And there's no way you could actually play that on any guitar. It's really actually very hard to play on piano as well.
Es muy difícil tocarla en piano. La voz es muy rara.
So that's helpful to me when I sometimes can find something new. And what I love about changing from one instrument to the next, or in particular changing the tuning of an instrument, is that it's free. You don't have to buy a box or do anything clever. You just retune it.
Yeah. Dice que es una manera barata de poder tener mejores canciones más creativas porque las afinan la guitarra es gratis. Okay, so you are coming to Chile with your trio, and we want to know how do you experience the change of audiences between your first time or epoch of your career and with the young ones.
One thing I have noticed, everywhere you go in the world, people react to music differently. But the amazing thing to me is that even though they may not know exactly what I'm singing, they have a similar response no matter where you go, whether it's in Germany or it's in Santiago or it's in, Sweden or Australia. People still get the same thing from the music. It always amazes me. In other words, it's obviously a language that everyone can understand even if they don't speak the same language.
Bueno, nos cuenta que pese a que va a otros países y las audiencias son todas distintas y pese a que no entienden el idioma que está cantando, todas reaccionan de una manera similar a la música y cree súper fascinante que sea un lenguaje que todos entendemos.
And another thing that I've noticed is that there are certain places in the world where the passion for music is different.
Y en otras partes del mundo la pasión por la música es diferente.
And I think here in the Latin countries in South America, they have the most passionate fans.
Y cree que en
They
Latinoamérica
like the music the most.
son más apasionados por la música, les gusta más la música. Yeah.
I'm not the only one who says that. Everyone says that who comes here. We always feel that the fans here have a different love and appreciation and excitement for music than some other places.
Que él no lo dice por su propia experiencia, sino que otros artistas con los que habla le cuentan lo mismo sobre los países latinoamericanos.
I have been to Japan 17 times.
He estado en Japón 17 veces.
And I love Japan, and I love the people, and I love their culture and their art.
Le encanta el arte y la gente y la
But the Japanese audience, when you finish a song, they go,
Los japoneses cuando terminan una canción aplauden así.
and you go, did they like us?
Y si les
And
gustó,
it's very interesting. They really reserve their appreciation till the very end. And at the end of the concert, they suddenly go wild.
son muy reservados con su apreciación con la música, pero cuando termina el concierto se vuelven locos.
So it's just a different way that people, appreciate the music. But they're great fans, and they love us just as everyone else that likes the music does. But it just shows you the difference.
Pero dice que de todas maneras se nota la diferencia, pero aún así les gusta el público. But regarding with the audiences, but in the business side this time, how do you feel the change between the new generations and your music?
Well, I think what has happened mostly in the business side of things is it's become a landscape in which you have to do everything yourself. It's a do-it-yourself business
Okay,
now.
que el nuevo modelo de negocio es un do yourself, hazlo tú mismo.
If you want to have an audience, you need to create your audience. You need to go play in front of them. You need to let them know that you're playing. You need to get on Facebook and Twitter and do all those things to let people know. It's the way that you reach out to your audience now. It wasn't that way 10 years ago.
Dice que si tú quieres una audiencia tienes que salir a crearla, no existe. Entonces tú tienes que salir a mostrarte, estar en Facebook y buscarla.
So what I think is the most important thing now, if you're starting out or if you've been playing for a long time, is to play in front of people.
Entonces creo que lo más importante, pese a que sea un artista que ya empezó su carrera o esté empezando, es tocar frente a la gente.
It's really the best way that you can spread the word about your own music that you're doing. And if I hadn't been playing live music when I started out, I would have never met Frank Zappa, and I would not be sitting here right now.
Que si no hubiera sido por todas las veces que tocó en vivo en su inicio de la carrera, él no hubiera conocido a Frank Zappa y no estaría acá. So Frank Zappa changed your life?
He did change my life, yes. I was, as I said, I never had much money. I was a poor musician. I was playing in Nashville in a little club with a cover band. We played, just songs that were on the radio.
Él dice que viene de una familia pobre y era un músico pobre y tocaba covers en Nashville.
And Frank Zappa came into Nashville and played a concert there.
Frank Zappa fue a Nashville a tocar el concierto.
And after his concert, he had a limo and he wanted to go somewhere and hear somebody play. And he asked the limo driver where they should go to hear a good band. And the limo driver liked the band I was in. So he brought Frank to the club where we were playing.
Que Frank Zappa, después de un show que tuvo en Nashville, lo pasó a buscar en una limo y él quería ir a ver una banda en vivo. Entonces el conductor lo lleva a la banda, al local donde tocaba.
And Frank heard us play for about 40 minutes, and I sang a lot of different styles because we played songs by Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, Steely Dan, and I would try to sound and play like all of those different people because it was best if you could sound as much like the record as possible.
Entonces Frank se quedó durante 40 minutos y él tocaba canciones de todos los artistas que mencionó lo más parecido posible al disco.
So I think that's what Frank saw, that, well, I was versatile and I could do a lot of different things with my voice and my guitar.
Entonces Frank vio eso, que era muy versátil con la voz y con la guitarra.
He listened for 40 minutes and he came up to the edge of the stage. I was playing Gimme Shelter. And he reached up his hand and shook my hand and said, I'm going to get your name and number from the chauffeur driver, and when my world tour is over, I will call you and audition you.
Okay. Entonces, mientras estaba tocando una canción, se acerca Frank Zappa al borde del escenario, le estrecha la mano y le dice que va a pedir su nombre y sus datos al chofer de la limusina y que cuando termine su gira mundial lo va a contactar.
6 months went by and nothing happened.
6 meses pasaron y no pasó nada.
And I pretty much thought it was just a joke.
Pensó que era una broma.
And then suddenly one day he called.
De repente llamó.
And he gave me a long list of songs to learn. when I told him that I didn't read music, he was a little hesitant.
Le mandó una lista de canciones y cuando él le cuenta que no sabe leer música, Frank dudó.
But he said, well, here, you learn these songs as best you can, learn to sing and play as much as you can of all these different songs. I had no money, so I borrowed the records from different friends of mine.
Entonces le dice, bueno, aprendete las canciones lo mejor que puedas con la guitarra, con la voz, y como no tenía dinero, le pedía los discos prestados a sus amigos.
Then he flew me to his home in Los Angeles. It was the first time I'd ever flown on a plane in my life.
Entonces lo invita en avión a Los Ángeles y era la primera vez que tomaba un avión.
I did an audition in his recording studio basement, just a microphone and a little tiny amp and me. And Frank sitting there, and he would ask me to play something, and I'd play it and sing it, and then after a while he'd say, okay, stop. And by the end of the audition, people were moving things around, pianos and all kinds of activity. I was very distracted, and then I realized by the end of the audition that I sucked.
Se nos cuenta que la audición era un micrófono, un pequeño amplificador en el estudio de Frank, y él estaba tocando y mucha gente movía cosas y él estaba distraído. Cuando termina, él cree que la cagó.
Well, I didn't have anywhere to go. I was supposed to stay there the whole day, and then they were going to take me back to the airport and fly me back home. So I watched other people audition, which was very scary.
Entonces se quedó porque no tenía dónde ir, y al final del día lo llevan de vuelta al aeropuerto, entonces escuchó a los otros audicionistas.
And then finally in the evening, there was a moment where it was just me and Frank standing there, and I said, Frank, I know I didn't do well in the audition. I thought it would be different. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I thought it would just be you and me quietly sitting somewhere, but there was so much activity. And he said, well, okay, then let's do that. So we went upstairs to his living room, sat on his couch, and I did the audition again, and I got about a third of the way through, and he reached out, shook my hand, and said, you have the job.
Entonces, termina la noche y antes de partir se acerca a Frank Zappa y le dice, bueno, yo no pensé que iba a ser así con tanta distracción, porque lo hice mal. Entonces lo invita a hacer la audición de nuevo en su living, a solas, y le estrecha la mano y le dice, está contratado.
I found out later he had auditioned 50 guitar players.
Después se dio cuenta que audicionó a 15 guitarristas. 50, okay, 50.
Yeah. So the next thing that happened in my life was incredible, because suddenly I was in Frank Zappa's band, and I moved to LA. I got a little apartment there. I didn't have a car, but we would rehearse in a big film studio 5 days a week for 3 whole months.
Okay, lo siguiente que pasó, se mudó a Los Ángeles, le cambió la vida, no tenía un auto y ensayaban 5 días a la semana en un teatro.
So
Durante 3 meses.
the other players in the band all were very well-trained musicians, people like Terry Bozzio and Ed Mann, and they would get charts on Monday morning. First day of rehearsal, they would get the music, but I didn't know how to read music, so here's what Frank said we'll do. He said, well, on Friday nights when we finish our week of rehearsal, you get in my car and you go stay at my house with me, and I will teach you over the weekend what we're going to learn the next week.
Okay. Y resulta que en los ensayos había músicos destacados como Terry Bozzio y otros más, donde leían casi a primera vista el material de la semana, y como él no leía música, el viernes al final del día Frank lo invitaba a que se quedara con él y él le enseñaba las canciones que iban a ver la siguiente semana.
So every weekend for 3 months I lived at the Frank Zappa house.
Entonces, durante todos los fines de semana, durante 3 meses, vivió con Frank Zappa.
With the Frank Zappa family.
Con la familia Zappa.
And the first weekend I went there, it was Saturday morning, and I was sitting upstairs again on the purple couch in his living room.
Bueno, estaban viviendo arriba en su apartamento en el couch, en el sofá.
And me and Frank were sitting there, and his son Ahmet,
Y su hijo Abel,
who was 5 years old,
que tenía 5 años.
Ahmet had beautiful long spit curl hair. Beautiful hair, like I dream about at nights.
Tiene pelo largo y ruliento.
And he came riding in the living room on a red tricycle. He was riding around like this on a red tricycle, and I said, Frank, that's a beautiful little girl you have there. And Amit rode his tricycle right up to me and said, fuck you. 5 years old. That's what it was like to live with the Zappa family.
Was it Robert? Whose idea was the Bob Dylan imitation?
The Bob Dylan imitation, one of those weekends that I was staying at Frank's house, he was just writing a song called Flakes, and he was showing it to me. He hadn't brought it to the band yet.
La pregunta de a quién se le ocurrió la idea de imitar a Bob Dylan, Bob Dylan solo. Cuenta la historia de una canción que invitaron.
So people may not know this, but Frank was pretty uncoordinated. He would either play guitar or sing. He couldn't do both at the same time very well.
Entonces, Frank no era tan coordinado, o tocaba guitarra o cantaba, no podía ser.
Yeah, if you watch all of the films of him, you'll see he either sings or he plays guitar. He doesn't do both.
Si ves las películas, no hace nunca lo otro.
So when he showed me Flakes,
Cuando le enseñó Flix,
it sounded awful because it sounded like a bad folk song.
sonaba mal porque parecía una mala canción de folk.
Terrible sounding thing, you know. So I started making fun of him.
Empecé a burlar de él.
Not a wise thing to do for your boss, but I did it anyway. And I started pretending, singing it like Bob Dylan.
Entonces le dijo, tú cantas como Bob Dylan.
Because it sounded like a bad folk song.
Suena como una mala canción de folk.
So I sang it like Bob Dylan, and then he said, that's it. That's going to be in the show. You're going to do that in the show.
So mira a Bob Dylan y dice, eso es lo que va a quedar en el show. So Adrian, can you, to finish this interview, play a few songs for us?
A few what?
Songs.
Okay, sure.
Or just one, whatever you want.
Okay.
Can I tell you one more story, though?
Please.
Okay, I want to tell you just one more story because. So I played with Frank after our 3 months of rehearsing.
Tocó con Frank después de 3 meses de ensayo.
We went on tour, my first tour ever,
Su primera gira
and we played in the United States for 2 months.
en Estados Unidos durante 2 meses.
And then we went to Europe to play there for 2 months.
Después iban a Europa por 2 meses.
And we were in Germany,
En Alemania,
in Cologne, Germany.
en Colonia.
And I didn't know it, but at the concert, Brian Eno was there at the concert.
Él no sabía, pero en el concierto estaba Brian Eno.
And Brian Eno knew that David Bowie was looking for a new guitar player because he was going to have another tour. He wanted to get a new guitar player.
Entonces Brian Eno sabía que David Bowie buscaba un guitarrista para su nueva gira.
So Brian Eno called David Bowie and said, you should go and see the guitar player that Frank Zappa has. 2 nights later, we played in Berlin, and that's where David was living.
Entonces Brian Eno le cuenta a David de que tenía que ver a este guitarrista, iban a Berlín.
So we were playing the show, and there was a point in the show every night where Frank would take a long 10-minute guitar solo with just the bass player and the drummer, and everyone else in the band would leave the stage.
Entonces en todos los shows había un intermedio de 10 minutos donde Frank hacía un solo con el bajista y el resto de la banda se iba.
So I was leaving the stage, and I looked over there, and I saw at the monitor mixer, David Bowie was standing there with Iggy Pop.
Se va y ve a David Bowie con Iggy Pop al lado del monitor.
So I walked over.
Camila
I mean, I had to say something, right?
tenía que decirle algo.
So I walked over and I shook David Bowie's hand and I said, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your music. I love all your work. And he said, great, how'd you like to be in my band?
Entonces le dice que aprecia su música, su trabajo y cómo hace la música. Entonces David Bowie le dice, bueno, ¿quieres estar en mi banda?
And I said, well, you know, I'm playing in Frank Zappa's band.
Tocando con Frank Zappa.
He said, yes, I know, but you know, your tour ends on this date and 2 weeks later my tour starts. So maybe we could talk about it after your show.
Entonces su gira terminaba y 2 semanas después de la gira de Frank empezaba la de David Bowie y ahí tenían que conversar.
So he said, I will meet you back in the lobby of your hotel.
Te voy a conversar en el lobby del Ben.
Of course, for me, this was extremely exciting. I couldn't believe it.
No lo podía creer.
I went back to the hotel after the show, and over in the corner on a little sofa there was David Bowie and his assistant. Her name is Coco.
Y que llegó al hotel y en el lobby estaba David Bowie con Coco, que era su asistente.
It seemed like they were trying to hide from everyone.
Como que se ocultaban de los demás.
So I walked over and they said, "Get in the elevator." What?
Al ascensor.
Just get in the elevator and go upstairs to your room and come back down in about 3 minutes.
Fueron en 3 minutos.
And come outside. We have a limo waiting. We're going to go to a restaurant.
Y salí, vamos en la limo, vamos a un restaurante.
So wow, this is like a spy film kind of thing. This is great.
Como una película de espías.
So I did that. I went up and I came back down. I went outside. Naturally, there's a black limo there. The guy opens the door for me. I get in the back of the black limo.
Hizo lo que eligieron, subió, bajó y estaba en la limusina.
And there's David Bowie and Coco. We get in the back seat and we take off.
Estaba sentado con David Bowie y Coco.
And David's just very excited. He's telling me how much he loves what I play and all the songs that he wants to do on the tour and where we're going to go. And it's really exciting. I just can't believe it. I'm just...
David le contaba todos
So-
los planes.
Then finally we arrived at a restaurant that David wanted to go to.
Y llegaron a un restaurante.
And I don't know how many restaurants there are in Berlin. I'm going to say maybe 25,000 maybe. I don't know how many.
Muchos restaurantes.
But anyway, David and I got out of the limo and we walked into the restaurant.
Se bajaron de la limo y entraron a un restaurante.
And at the very front table, there sat Frank Zappa and the rest of the band.
Y en el hotel, en el restaurante, abren la puerta y estaba Frank Zappa con toda la banda en el mismo restaurante.
So I was busted.
Basta, pillado.
So we didn't know what to do, so we sat down and David tried to be, David's a gentleman, you know, charming kind of person, so he tried to strike up a conversation with Frank, and he said, "Frank, this is quite a guitar player you have."
Cuando se sientan y David le dice, bueno, ¿qué gran guitarrista tienes?
And Frank said, "Fuck you, Captain Tom."
Y le responde así a David Bowie.
Now just think about that, not Major Tom. He demoted him down to being Captain Tom automatically. He lost rank.
Era el Major Tom, el capitán.
So then David said, you know, "Oh, you know, come on, Frank, can we be gentlemen about this? Can we talk about this?"
Entonces David le dice, bueno, podemos ser caballeros y conversarlo.
And Frank said, "Fuck you, Captain Tom."
No repite lo mismo.
And David said, "Really? I mean, you that's all you don't want to talk about it? Fuck you, Captain Tom." So we got up and we left the restaurant and went back to the limo.
Volvieron a la limo.
And when we went outside, David said, "I thought that went rather well."
Entonces se sube a la limo y dice, bueno, eso salió bastante bien.
And that's how I ended up going from Frank's band to David's. I would like to tell you though that I thought I was only going to work with David for a few months and then I was going to rejoin Frank's band. So I didn't think it was going to be forever. I didn't walk out on Frank because I loved him a lot, but it didn't work out that way.
Él pensaba que iba a volver a la banda de Frank después de tocar con David, pero no pasó.
How long were you back then?
I was 27 years old, going on 13.
When you joined Frank Zappa, how old were you?
27 years old, yes. And that was kind of old, actually. I was worried that maybe I was not going to ever get anywhere because, you know, it seemed like if you didn't make it in your early 20s, you were in trouble. So, anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Did you end up being friends with Zappa after you left the band, or did he stay mad at you?
If you were friend with Zappa after you left the band.
Sorry?
If you were friend with
Oh, yes,
Zappa
yes. Yes, every time I went back to LA, I would always make a visit up to his house and we would sit and talk. And yeah, very much so. We remained good friends and, you know, I love him very much. And I still dream about him. He means a lot to me.
Significó mucho para él, seguir soñando con él.
Yes?
Yeah, well, at the beginning I thought you might.
Well, at first I thought that I was like going to ask you like a lot of questions, but you really said like a lot of things that really helped me. Like, because you have like, we are in the university, so you have like these rules and the what you're supposed to do and what's right and what's wrong about music, and I actually don't think that it's a rule for that. So you show me that with like changing the tune and stuff, and like breaking the rules. That, I mean, you didn't know how to read music and you play with the greatest. So that's really inspiring because it's all about creativity, right? So my question is, this is like super cliche, but what's your advice for young kids who are learning? I mean, like, what's the most important thing, you know? Because you can learn like the standard stuff, like the college stuff, but what's something that you can't learn in university, something that really stretch out?
Well, I think rules are good to have. They're good. They're guidelines. They're also sometimes they're good to break and do something new. If I could say there's one rule that I've always followed, my only rule is be creative. Try to do something of your own. Try to do something your own way. And I feel like if you're always striving to do something different than maybe everything else that somebody else is doing, you're not trying to copy anyone, you're trying to really strive to figure out how you can find something of your own. That's the best rule to follow, because eventually you'll work out who you are and what you have to offer. So I always advise people to listen to the music that they like, learn as much as they can from it, be very passionate, practice really hard, try really hard, but more than anything else, always be true to what you feel like inside. Don't try to do something else because someone says this is popular or this will make you money or whatever. The only real reason to play music is right here. It's what it is that when you play something that you love, something about it, that is the reward. That's the whole reward. The money and everything else is second.
Okay. Dice que la creatividad y hacer lo que uno lo apasiona es lo más importante y trabajar duro para eso. Por resumir un poquito. Quiero que le demos un aplauso a Adrian. Thank you, Adrian, for coming to the university. It's a really honor for us. And I have a little gift for you. Just give me a second.